whether a property of a pitch class set is an advantage or a disadvantage to composers, it depends on the composer. It depends on what they're trying to do. Um, Most of you probably know the diatonic set, 735, um, here shown as the familiar major scale. The 735 it's an extremely regular set. I mean, depending on your definition of regular, it's probably the most regular set. Melodies that occur in a diatonic scale, if you sequence them up and down inside the scale, they do change appreciably. That's why we have modes, but they do retain a lot of similarity from one set to the next, or at least in a quintal continuum. Lydian sounds a lot like Ionian, which sounds a lot like Mixolydian, which sounds a lot like Dorian, which sounds a lot like Aeolian, which sounds a lot like Phrygian, which sounds a lot like Locrian. Even even Lydian and Locrian, in some ways, sound similar because it's just the final that's different. And then there's even some Scottish music, old Scottish music, you can find it. It's Locrian with a lowered final. Um, Seriously, look for that. But a question that occurred to me before I studied pitch class set theory was: is there any really quick, not complicated way to completely mess up uh, diatonic music so that it doesn't do what it's supposed to do? And eventually, this is what I came up with. Um, those of you who know Arnold Schoenberg really well know there's the all trichord hexachord is the hexachord that has all the trichord types in it. So if you do things sequentially with that hexachord, they sound really different from sequence to sequence. Oh, there's that contour again, but it's the effect is completely different because of the way that trichords fall inside the melody or inside the figure. I can take this up a notch if you like. I'm gonna. Okay. Set class 715 has a property that it contains not only all the trichord types, it contains inversions of all those trichord types. So if you're looking for a trichord or its inversion in 715, you're going to find it. It's there. The result is if you do this. I forgot to do this part before I go on. I'm not going to do a second take. Forget that. Here's 735 in a very familiar form. This is the major scale. You lower this. Oh no, and you raise that. Oh no. Yes. Can you do that and still have a scale? Well, according to Narmer and Meyer, sure. If you want to transpose this becomes 0 and that becomes 8. If it goes up to 8, then that gap between the 8 and the 0 is that's interval class 4. That's a continuation interval according to Narmer and Meyer, and so you can do complete registral transfer if you use the complete set up this way. At any position, it'll work. It'll go both ends of the piano or both ends of the harp. I like harps. Okay. So that's what you get. You get this thing here that if you want, you can call it a gap. I prefer not to think of it as a gap though. But what this does is, if you had a melody that was diatonic, and you just change those two tones, what's going to happen to that melody as you sequence it to the other 6 positions is it is going to sound very different. Now you expect that to happen in Schoenberg because everything's supposed to sound weird in Schoenberg. I know that's not really true, but it is somewhat true. How would you use this? I don't know. If you're clever, you'll figure out a way to use it. You'll notice that if you do take hexatonic scales, they do basically the same thing, except then because of this this gap here, they end up working on microscales instead. Pentatonic scales kind of do the same thing. You have to be cautious of that if you care. I care. Question then is, well, if it's 7 tones, how am I going to use it atonally? That's a little more tough. You probably have to throw the A and the G back in somehow in a different voice. Hints there are put it in a very different register. Put it in deliberate cross relation with its G against G sharp, A against G against G flat, A against A sharp, that kind of thing. If you've actually studied atonal composition thoroughly, you'll find you can find a way to throw the A and the G back in there with those other tones. Don't put them next to each other. All kind of bizarre rules. You can probably figure it out if that's your thing. Otherwise, if you just want to take familiar melodies and make them sound completely messed up, this is my easiest shortcut for that. They will sound messed up. They will sound 7 different kinds of messed up. Try it seriously.